Welcome back to SwitchCorner. Today we're taking a look at Crysis for the Nintendo Switch. Can this shooter still deliver 13 years later, and how does it even look and perform on the Switch? I think that's the big question for most of us. Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family. A big thank you then to Crytek as well for the review code, and now let's do this. So Crysis isn't a game famous for its storyline, that's for sure, but it's actually pretty entertaining stuff, embodying plot points that remind me of that kind of like classic Schwarzenegger or Stallone vehicle. Here you'll be taking on the role of Nomad, a new member of the Raptor Squad, basically like this military team. Here though, you're on a rescue mission after a team of archaeologists, they send out a distress call after discovering something that is basically completely unknown. They've now of course been taken hostage by enemy forces, so you must save them, figure out what the hell is going on, save your team, and take on then, of course, more than a few bad guys, including those of the alien variety. It's not particularly smart, but it is a lot of fun, presenting a version of 2020 that thankfully isn't real. But I gotta say, some of the futuristic tech concepts, they are very cool. Yes, this is based in 2020. Yes, that is supposed to be the future, because do remember this actually came out in 2007. Decent stuff though. I enjoyed the banter between the squad members, the plot's quick moving, and yeah, if you basically want to be an all-out action hero, this is about as close as it gets, and it's often overlooked how good the story is. So gameplay, and for the most part in controls at least, it's a traditional first-person shooter, you know, move with the left stick, aim with the right and shoot with the trigger. Where Crysis separated itself though was it sets itself on a small island. You'll basically be given a small piece of story, a waypoint that you need to approach, and then you're kind of left to your own creativity on how you achieve your goal. Maybe you'll go in all guns blazing, maybe you'll go in stealth. Crysis basically equips you with a set of skills and kind of lets you run the show from there out, you know, your own way. It's something that I always appreciated about it. What really separates Crysis out though is its Nanosuit technology. This futuristic piece of kit basically gives you superpowers. Want, you know, superhuman strength? You got it. How about the ability to jump as high as a building? Check. What about going invisible? Of course. I bet you can't become, you know, near bulletproof. Wrong, of course you can. Each of these abilities though, it smartly balances playstyles to ensure that every player has an option. You know, want to stealth that next kill? Well, invisibility will for sure become useful. How about charging in, you know, all guns blazing? Well, equip that armor. It makes for a seriously entertaining set of abilities that you can use in very different ways. It very much was a standout feature of Crysis' first time around, and it still stands out today. Just, I will say though, be aware with all of this cool tech, it uses energy, which is down in the corner of the screen. It's basically a fancy stamina bar, so you can't just go invisible forever, let's say. The shooting then, and its solid stuff, not only does it control well on the Switch, but they even threw in gyro controls. I wish it had a few extra settings honestly, but it still works really well. In Crysis, gyro is basically always active, and I just wish for my style of play personally, it would only kick in when you're looking down the scope of a gun. I prefer gyro more for micro adjustments than anything else, and not necessarily all the time. I will give it this though, it's implemented really well and I've got no complaints. I did use it the entire playthrough. I just wish I could tweak it that little bit more. Crysis gameplay has always been a lot of fun, mainly as I've said, down to that freedom, you know, even things like just moving around the island, you know, want to drive a car or a truck, you can. Want to jump in a speedboat, they've got you covered. Want to use a super speed run, the Nanosuit has that too. There's a freedom to the gameplay that just drives, to me at least, replayability, because I always encounter something slightly different each time I revisit this world, because there's no one set path. Even the environments themselves are destructible for the most part, and nothing makes you feel quite as much like a badass as watching the trees get chopped down from your machine gun fire, or making a building collapse on your foe. This was literally the first thing I tested the second I installed this Switch build, and I'm really happy to see it's all still here. Crysis is a very good game that often gets seen as more of a visual test than anything a benchmark. Even with this Switch release, honestly, I think it's fair to say we've all been basically thinking, oh, how will it look? Jumping back into this now though, I've got to say I actually forgot how good the gameplay itself is. I had moments with just a huge smile on my face because I just stealthed my way like around an entire village as this individual badass, and I wasn't seen once from like 20 enemies. Then there was the moments of like just balls to the wall action. Crysis for me just exemplifies how you do the shooting genre right. Give me the weapons, give me the direction, but let me approach in my own style. It's great stuff, and at roughly 10 hours there's a decent amount of content, and a lot of you will want to revisit it to try out new things, new approaches, but also thanks to multiple difficulty modes. I've had a fantastic time playing Crysis again. So graphics and frame rate then, and look, on graphics it's Crysis. What the game is no doubt most famous for is the strain it will put onto nearly any hardware, nearly setting one of my old computers on fire. I'm guilty of it too. I have this on Steam. Pretty much the first thing I do with any sort of PC upgrade or change is install Crysis and see if it works. It gives me that like slight warmth, knowing yes, it can play Crysis on a decent setting. On the Switch, I'll put it out there now, it's like Crysis at low settings, maybe ultra low settings honestly by today's standards, but you know what, it's still very pretty. For me, where Crysis just excelled was its island and its size. While it's not huge, it's a very well crafted location with a lot going on that it feels very much, you know, real and lived in. Huge open vistas though, that's my favourite thing. You'll be impressed as you see like huge mountains and locations in the distance that you can very much visit. The level of detail then too, and especially the shadow work, is seriously impressive here considering, you know, the hardware we are running this on. Now granted, I will say there is quite a bit of pixelation here and there, but look, I feel they've done what they can without leaning too heavily on performance. Problems then, and the main one for me really on the graphical side of things, is popping. Because of how large these open areas do get, you'll immediately notice as like the plants, the grass around you comes into play. Same thing with like the textures on pretty much everything. Wasn't the worst, but it is still very noticeable, and like if you're walking into a new open area, you're going to see things just popping up all over the place. When it comes to performance then as well, we've all seen the 30 frames per second videos out there, and for the most part I will say it's true, but if you get into a firefight you'll see it drop to maybe around 28. Then in particularly like big moments, big battles, I saw it drop as low as 21 as I was tackling tanks, destructible environments and a sizable wave of enemies, as you can see in the background now. I'll say this though, it surprisingly never felt like 21. To be honest, if you'd asked me at the time when I was playing, I never would have guessed it was going that low, thanks to like some, I think, masking with like blur effect that they've done. But for the most part it is solid. Just don't think it's a locked 30, because that's very much not the case. But I will say as well, it's not as bad as it may sound. So overall for visuals, I can't believe it's even running on the Switch honestly, which makes me more forgiving, because I think it's also fair to say it's still a good looking game, and to be honest, better than I ever expected on the Switch. If you are curious too, finally, Crytek did announce that docked it's running for the most part at 720p, occasionally scaling up to 900, and then handheld you're looking at 540 to 720. With the smaller screen though, I will say, it actually sharpens things up if you're coming from a decent sized TV, and I think it's going to be my favourite way to play. Good stuff visually overall, with draw distance and texture downgrades, which were no doubt for the most part expected. So audio then, and this is a funny area for me. First, the music's great as it matches that moment-to-moment gameplay with some particularly nice action-heavy tracks for the organs blazing, and then that kind of more mysterious as you simply explore. What I want to focus on though is the sound effects. The guns, they sound good. It's fully voice-acted, which is great, you know, that's always a good thing. Even the world around you, the sound of like the bush as you crawl through it, and just small ambience pieces, it brings this world to life. But something as I was playing it just felt off to me about the implementation. Volume levels, first of all, they feel a little all over the place, like enemies talking closer to me would be actually too loud or too quiet. Sometimes the audio, like enemies, like dialogue, would just cut out. And then the big one, I actually played with headphones, and the relative placement of, you know, the audio and my enemy just didn't feel quite right. You know, an enemy could be on my right hand side, for example, and you could hear they were trying to achieve this in the audio, but it just didn't quite work for me. Also the mix, it doesn't quite come together honestly. It very much feels feels like it was all recorded in different locations, you know, like the dialogue of our enemies to the location and the environmental sounds. There's something about the balance there that just doesn't quite make them, you know, meld together. The audio is decent for the most part, but it could just do with like a few tweaks to balance it all out a little better and work out some of the cutting in and cutting out. So overall, Crysis to me always has embodied the word epic, and having now revisited it on the Switch, that is true to this day. From its almost like 80s action storyline to the scale of every single scenario you face, it kicks it off with a parachute jump overlooking the entire island, and they really never let up on that kind of huge scale idea from start to finish. Gameplay then translates so well to the Switch, and it's easily earned its place now as it's going to be at least one of my favourite shooters to take on the go. It's just the core experience, the Nanosuit. It's exciting and as fresh as it was back in 2007. Now sure, we've seen some downgrades here visually, and the performance very much takes a hit, something I would honestly normally hold against a game, but we are still talking about Crysis here. I still have PCs that will struggle with this game. Thankfully though, the variable frame rate, it masks the issues pretty well throughout, and honestly, as I said, it never felt during those like action heavy moments that it was in fact hitting like 22 frames per second. Going into Crysis, I was nervous this was going to be a disaster, honestly, and I'm happy to say the work they've done with the equipment they have is seriously impressive. If I had to fix two things with this one, see if there is anything that can be done about popping, just make that draw distance a tiny bit further, and then also work on the audio. There's something weird going on, honestly, that just makes it all feel a little disconnected from each other. Overall though, look, this is Crysis in the palm of your hands, and if you know Crysis, that in itself seems like a miracle. Today I'm giving Crysis Remastered on the Nintendo Switch a sentence I never thought I would get to say: a great 8 out of 10. They've made compromises for sure, but all clearly for the most part for the benefit of the player, and that's really, in my opinion, all you can ask for. Thanks for watching. Will you be picking this one up? What do you think of the graphics and the way overall it performs? Let me know in the comments below. Then I want to say a quick thank you to the patrons of the channel. They're going above and beyond to support us, and it really does mean a lot to us. Thank you so very much. If you want to check that out for yourself, it is in the description below. Everyone else then, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family. I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.